Judaism over the centuries. Revolt, defeat, and migration. The teachings of Judaism helped unite the ancient Jews after the conquest of Israel by Romans. Many events threatened to tear Jewish society apart. One threat to Jewish society was foreign rule. By the beginning of the 1st century AD, many Jews in Judaism had grown tired of foreign rule. If they could regain their independence, these Jews thought they could recreate the kingdom of Israel. Revolt against Rome. The most rebellious of these Jews were a group called Zealots. This group didn't think that Jews should answer to anyone but God. As a result, they refused to obey Roman officials. Zealots argued the fellow Jews to rise up against the Romans. Tension between Jews and Romans increased. Finally, in AD 66, the Jews revolted, led by the Zealots. They fought fiercely. In the end, the Jews' revolt against the Romans was not successful. The revolt lasted 4 years and caused terrible damage. By the time the fighting ended, Judaism lay in ruins. The war had wrecked buildings and cost many lives. Even more devastating to the Jews was the fact that the Romans buried the Second Temple during the last days of fighting in AD 70. As the flames went upward, the Jews made a great clamor, shout, such as so mighty an affliction or ordeal required, and ran together to prevent it. And now they spared not their lives any longer, not suffered anything to restrain their force, since that holy house was perishing. After the temple was destroyed, most Jews lost their will to fight and surrendered. But few refused to give up their fight. The small group of about 1,000 zealots locked themselves in a mountain fortress called Masada. Intent of smashing the revolt, the agreement sent 1,500 soldiers to capture these zealots. However, Masada was hard to reach. The Romans had to build a huge ramp on earth and stones to get to it. For 2 years, the zealots refused to surrender. As the ramp grew, finally, as the Romans broke through Masada's wall, the zealots took their own lives. They refused to become Roman slaves. Results of the revolt. With the capture of Masada in AD 73, the Jewish revolt was over. As punishment for the Jews' rebellion, the Romans killed much of Jerusalem's population. They took many of the surviving Jews to Rome as slaves. The Romans dissolved the Jewish power structure to take over the city. Besides these taken slaves, thousands of Jews left Jerusalem after the destruction of the Second Temple. With the temple destroyed, they didn't want to live in Jerusalem anymore. Many moved to Jewish communities in other parts of Roman Empire. One common destination was Alexandria in Egypt, which had a large Jewish community. The populations of these Jewish communities grew after the Romans destroyed Jerusalem. A second revolt. Some Jews, however, not to choose to leave Jerusalem when the Romans conquered it some 60 years after the capture of Masada. These Jews, unhappy with Roman rule, began another revolt. Once again, however, the Roman army defeated the Jews. After this rebellion in the 130s, the Romans banned all Jews from the city of Jerusalem. Roman officials declared that any Jew caught in or near the city would be killed. As a result, Jewish migration throughout the Mediterranean region increased. Migration and discrimination. For Jews not living in Jerusalem, the nature of Judaism changed. Because the Jews no longer had a single temple at which to worship, long synagogues became more important. At the same time, leaders called rabbis or religious teachers took on a great role in guiding Jews to their religious lives. Rabbis were responsible for interpreting the Torah and teaching. This change was largely due to the actions of Yohan ben Zakkai, a Rabbi who founded a school in Yabneh, near Jerusalem. In this school, he taught people about Judaism and trained them to be rabbis. Influenced by Yonan, rabbis' ideas shaped how Judaism was practiced for the next several centuries. Many rabbis also served as leaders of Jewish communities. Over many centuries, Jews moved out of the Mediterranean region to other parts of the world. In many cases, this movement was not voluntary. These Jews were forced to move by other religious groups who discriminated against them or were unfair to them. Jews were forced to leave their cities and find new places to live. As a result, some Jews settled in Europe and Asia, and much later the United States.